Welcome to the 2 Acre Homestead Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa. On today's episode, we're talking about turning those garden failures into garden successes. Let's get started. Welcome to the 2 Acre Homestead. Come along with us on our journey from a small suburban homestead lifestyle to our new lifestyle, homesteading in the rural countryside of southern Arizona. We'll share with you our tips, tricks, successes, and failures from both our past suburban lifestyle to our new rural lifestyle, all on the 2 Acre Homestead. So today's episode, I really am aiming for a heart-to-heart with you guys as a listener. I have had just a crazy year already, and we're just mid-July going into August, actually. We're late July, going into August. And it has been a terrible gardening year for me. Now, mind you, I have been gardening for quite some time, and the previous place that my husband and I lived in, that garden, I don't think there's a day that goes by that I don't miss my old garden. When we first moved into that house, the yard, it was terrible. The soil was terrible. What had happened is there was a big pool back there, and they took the pool out and backfilled it with just dirt. And if you're a gardener, you know the difference between dirt and soil. Yeah, there's a difference. I didn't have soil, I had dirt. There was no life in it whatsoever. I mean, zero life in that dirt. It took me a good 2 years to actually bring that dirt to life. And I'm pretty much in the same spot again this year. The difference this year is, unlike that particular house that we moved from, at the time when we moved into that house, I did not have children. We have children now. And there's just a lot of crazy things going on in the world today. And having a fully productive, functioning garden is top priority for me. Why is it priority for me? It's because for me and my family, we primarily want to eat from our gardens and primarily really eat from the things that we produce here on our homestead. We're trying our best to get ourselves off of grocery stores, and we pretty much have gotten ourselves away from the grocery store. But, and we're really we're very, very focused on getting rid of prepackaged food, prepackaged anything. So having a garden that is fully functioning and producing lots of food is a priority for us. Well, because we're new to this property and we only had dirt to deal with in the area that I chose to start our main garden, things have been just incredibly slow. Even though one of the first things that we did last October is we got compost delivered and we started our own compost. Even all of that aside, it's still difficult. We're still trying to get the soil rejuvenated and turning it into soil so that it can feed our family. So it's been a little bit of a garden failure this year. The other thing that's been hard this year is that me and my family, we have moved from gardening zone 9B to gardening zone 8A. So there's a little bit of a learning curve for me. Typically, I'll give you an example. Typically, when I was in growing zone 9B, February 15 is a day on my calendar for years that February 15 hits. That is the day, I don't care what's going on, that's my day to get my tomato seeds and pepper seeds started. So I am planting those seeds on February 15. That date does not work here. The month of February, it's still very cold here. The ground is still freezing, and that's a new experience for me to deal with ground that actually freezes. So yeah, there is no planting of anything, in the month of February. You might want to think about the month of March if you have a greenhouse, and definitely by April, everything's fine. But, yeah, so it's a different, growing zone, which means I have different frost dates and just a different environment to grow in. And that's a learning curve. You're talking to or listening to somebody who has been, for the most of their adult life, has been gardening in either a 9A or 9B, USDA 9A or 9B growing zone. So to move to an 8A, even though we're still in the same state, but we are very high elevation, which that's another thing, because we are in a higher elevation, we get lots of wind here. So just a completely different growing environment here. So that's been a bit discouraging. And so this year I was really just laser focused. I've been laser focused on the garden. I have been obsessed over my gardens. And we got to the month of July, and around July 4, I just felt like I just wanted to hold up the white flag and just surrender, just quit. I was just feeling like, I'm done. I quit. I'm done. I can't handle it anymore. And I had to sit back and ask myself why I was feeling that way. So this is going into the first garden failure. And that was lack of motivation. And I was like, why am I feeling not motivated, uninspired? Just like, I just want to just give up and now my garden has been taken over by weeds. That's not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing, because that means there's fertility now. But I just was like, I'm done. And I asked myself why. And then I realized this is the largest garden I have ever had in my life. I have a growing space of 3,200 square feet. That's a size of somebody's house, 3,200 square feet. And it's the largest garden that I've ever had. And every single day I am out there harvesting. Yeah, harvesting. So am I really having a garden failure? No. But the failure is in the lack of inspiration. And I was feeling this way until around the 1st of July. And what happened around the 1st of July is cucumber season hit here on the homestead. And one of my sons comes out into the garden and he yanks one of the cucumbers. He just pulls it off the vine, practically pulled the vine out of the ground. And he just started eating the cucumber just right there. Ate the whole thing. Then picked up 2 more and ate those. That was 3 cucumbers. That boy loves cucumbers. As a matter of fact, he loves them so much in his broken little, language skills, he calls them poo poppos. And every day he wants a poo popple. And we keep correcting, we keep saying, no, it's, poo popple. Oh, you mean cucumber. Yeah, poo popples. And then I finally found my inspiration. So turning this failure of the gardener not being inspired, getting myself re-inspired, because my son knows where his poo-papus or cucumbers, he knows where these cucumbers come from. And he's eating them straight out of the garden. Now, I wash my produce, it's sanitized and everything. It's clean, but he's eating it straight out of the garden. And it is so inspiring to me that my children know where food comes from. He knows, that little boy knows at age 2, he knows to go into the garden to get cucumbers. He doesn't even remotely think about cucumbers being in the refrigerator. When he wants a cucumber, he wants to go to the garden for his cucumber. Same thing with other produce that he likes. He knows, I'm going to the garden because that's where that food is. That is amazing at age 2 that he knows where his food is coming from. And if I ever needed inspiration, that inspires me. And I got my inspiration from my little 2-year-old because he wanted his poo-papus. So that is turning a garden failure into a garden success. So I've had some other failures. Let's get into some specifics on specific crops, because I know you guys didn't tune in for this little bit with my 2-year-old son, but it is a garden failure when you're not inspired. But the other garden failure that I have had, and again, this goes back to changing gardening zones. Now, typically where we lived before, and even years ago in the Phoenix area, I would plant my onions in the fall or the very, very early part of winter. Why? Because, it doesn't really get cold. I mean, you may need a jacket from time to time, but it doesn't really get cold. So, and especially in the Phoenix metro area. So, I would just go ahead and plant my onions. I did that every year. I'd plant my onions, somewhere between January and somewhere between February. I'd, start them from seed, get them started, put them in the ground, and knew that I was going to harvest them sometime around this time of the year, July, August, definitely by August, but July, June or July, you're going to harvest them and you'll have an onion harvest.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Are you looking to build a homestead from the ground up? Or maybe you're looking to build an off-grid dream home, a vacation home, or maybe just a piece of land to call your own. Visit yourcheapland.com to buy rural land in the wide open spaces of southwestern United States. When you visit yourcheapland.com, they're here to help you, and with their help, you can do this. You can take your dream of owning land and make it a reality. Most down payments are only $294, including the document fee. Remember, everyone qualifies for financing at yourcheapland.com. Head on over to yourcheapland.com and start making those dreams come true. And now, back to our podcast. Well, that didn't work this year. It just did not work. The ground was too cold for me to even think about putting them in when I normally do. And I was really upset because not only did it not work, but when I was finally able to get my onions into the ground, what I realized is I had the wrong type. So onions come in what's called a long day and a short day, and it has to do with the sunlight. So people who are typically in the northern climate, they usually grow what's called a long day. Those of us in the southern area of the country grow usually short day onions. But there are also onions that are sensitive to the heat, and there are other onions that do better with cold. Well, historically, I always grow a type of onion it's a red onion called Creole, and another onion, it's a Texas sweet. Now, the Texas sweet doesn't bulb really like a true bulb, but we absolutely love that particular onion. Well, what happened this year is I planted my normal, those two normal ones, and they like the warmer temperatures a lot better than the cold. And so I finally got them into the ground, I think at the beginning of March. And what I didn't realize is that we were still getting freezing temperatures. So they grew for a little bit. And then in April, we had a cold snap. And the ground, everything it was a killing frost. Killed everything. I thought I'd lost the onions, and some of them I did. And the ones that stuck around, they snapped out of it. And the problem is that they went right to seed. So I didn't really get the big bulbs that I was looking for, especially with my Creole, because those are the ones I like to save and store. Is the red onions. And I prefer red onions over even like a Walla Walla or a Texas sweet, these are all yellow onions. I prefer them, the red, because there's more nutrition. So they went to seed on me. I did not get the bulbs that I was looking for. So then I had to kind of ask myself the question, what am I going to do with all these green onions? Because as I was harvesting them, basically that's what I grew was green onions. So after doing much head scratching and being particularly perturbed over this situation, I decided that I was going to take this failure and turn it into a success. I dehydrated the green onion parts. So that's the green stalks. I dehydrated them and then powdered them and made my own seasoning out of the green onions. And I tell you what, it's a hit. My family absolutely loves it. You take the powdered green onion, combine that with salt, onion powder, and garlic powder, and a little bit of pepper, and you can sprinkle that on just about anything. We've had it now on chicken. We especially love it on potatoes. It is absolutely fantastic. So that is another failure that I've had in my garden that I'm turning into a success. And I wanted to bring that up because if you have a failure like that where something's going to seed, especially in the onion family, go ahead and dehydrate it. Save some of the seed, and that's exactly what I've done. I've saved some of the seed, but then I've just gone ahead and made a success out of it by turning it into a seasoning. And that way nothing on the homestead goes to waste. So hopefully that gives you some tips and tricks. Another garden failure that I have had, and it has just broken my heart. And it's broken my heart because I know better. It's one of those, it's like, what was I thinking? So it took months, and I do mean months, for me to get wood chips. I have a garden space of 3,200 square feet. I need wood chips because I don't want to be out there every day watering my garden. I use the wood chips to cover the ground so that way it keeps the soil moist. Now, there is a local tree service company out here, and every time I would see them, I would call and ask if they would deliver, and they would say, yeah, they would, and the tech will get back with me and blah, blah, blah. So finally, one day I called, and I think the girl just got tired of talking to me, and she's like, hey, I'm going to give you I'll give you the technician, I'll give you his cell phone number. I was like, cool. So I started texting him, and this was like every other week now. This is going on for months. I'd say about 3 months now that every other week I would text him, when are you going to be in our area? Blah, blah, blah. And the last text message I had sent him, I said, I just saw one of your guys coming down my street or, close to my street. When are you guys going to be able to deliver wood chips to my house? The following week, they delivered wood chips to my house. And it was a big pile. And I graciously took it. It was delivered for free. I was very excited. And I started spreading that everywhere on my garden. There was something that I forgot to do. I was so giddy as a schoolgirl because I finally got my wood chips that I forgot one of the basic things that I should have done, and that was to put a weed barrier down on my walkways. Yeah. So now I have all of these weeds. And when I say all these weeds, I mean there are a ton of weeds in my main garden right now. All because I forgot to put weed cloth down first before putting the wood chips down. So that has been a bit of a deterrent for me. It's left me again with that uninspired feeling, that feeling of, oh, now I have to go out to the main garden and, oh, I got to get the hoe out so that I can get these weeds. And then I've got to move all the wood chips around so that I can get the weed fabric down. I know better. I should have done it. What was I thinking? And I'm just spending time being upset with myself because I did not put weed fabric down when I should have. So how do I turn this failure of mine into a success? Well, one thing I've learned over the years is slow and steady wins the race. I don't do everything all at once in the garden. As much as I jokingly say the 20-year-old in me, I'm not 20 by the way, but the 20-year-old girl that's inside my head says, I could knock out all these weeds in one day and be done with it. I should just go ahead and do it. Yeah, she doesn't agree with the 40-year-old that's in me right now, because the 40-year-old in me says, there's no way with toddlers and everything else that I have going on that I'm going to spend all day in my garden weeding. So what I do is I do little bits at a time. So as I'm walking through the garden, because I'm harvesting out of it every single day, I will take time to do a little bit of weeding here and there. And I turn it into a success because I take those weeds and I feed it to the animals. And from there, I can make meat out of these weeds that I just absolutely am upset over. I'm just turning them into meat to eat. So I'm taking that failure and making a success out of it. So basically, I'm teaching myself and learning through this experience that, sometimes on a homestead, you just have to pivot. You have to look at things with a positive viewpoint. And sometimes you just have to pivot. You've got to change plans. I've got to do things a certain way because maybe I'm in a particular season of my life. Such as what I just said about the 20-year-old versus the 40-year-old. I'm just not in that season of life. So I'm changing, creating a success out of what could be a garden failure. So another garden failure that I'm having, this is going to sound very odd to most of you, but even though I'm harvesting out of my garden daily, there is a lot of damage right now in my gardens. I've encountered a new enemy that I've never had to deal with before. And that is this enemy, he or it will destroy my plants from the root. The enemy that I'm speaking of is voles with a V and ground squirrels. I have both of them. And let me tell you, I am trying different methods to get rid of the voles. They are the most destructive things I have ever seen. I have a row of crookneck squash, which is a summer squash, I have a row of it planted, and I believe that row's 50 feet. It's a 50-foot row. So there's something like eight or nine of those plants of the crookneck squash plant. And the voles have successfully killed off, I think it's 4 of those plants now. Just dead. A couple weekends ago, the first part of July, I harvested a watermelon for my oldest son, and I couldn't figure out why the watermelon was kind of squishy. And I've been growing watermelons for years, and this particular watermelon looked really good. It looked healthy, and I thought, okay, yeah, this one's good. But then when I picked it up, I'm like, why is it squishy? And it's the next day, I kid you not, the next day, that watermelon plant disappeared. Gone. The whole thing gone. And I believe it was the vole, because it would have been too much for it to take underground with the watermelon attached, because the watermelon was pretty big. So it must have been eating the watermelon from the ground, from, up under the ground. And that's why when I went to harvest the watermelon, it was kind of squishy because it wasn't getting the nutrients that it needed. And it was just sitting out there in the sun cooking, essentially. Because when I opened up that watermelon, that's what it looked like. It looked like it had been cooked. Yeah. So how do I turn this garden failure into a garden success? I had to look outside of my home to be able to do this. So something that I have talked about before, and that is when you have garden failures, or when you have things that you're not growing in your garden, you've got gaps. We live in an interesting time right now where we can go to farmers markets and you can go to farms. So I'm very fortunate that where we live, there are U-Pick farms where you can go and harvest fruits and vegetables from a particular farm. So that is exactly what I've been doing, because I've had such failures, especially with the squash. Now, not all squashes, and I have been harvesting from them, but not as much as I would like, because the voles keep killing those particular plants. And it's all my plants that are in the long rows. They don't bother my raised garden beds. They don't bother any other bed but those long rows. So everything that I have planted there, I am going to U-Pick farms and also to farmers markets, and I'm buying in bulk, and then I am putting up the food. So I'm taking that failure and pivoting so that I can still have some sort of a successful harvest and have good food still put up on my family shelves. Or not my family shelves, the pantry shelves. So that is what has been just driving me absolutely crazy, especially the voles. If you guys have any tips or tricks or know of anything that works on voles, please send me an email. My email address is lisa@the2acrehomestead.com. I would love to hear from you and love to know what you think would work what method, what process, what gadget, what should I do to get rid of these voles? Because they are just, oh man, they are just pests. Oh, so, but that is it for me. That is a little bit of what has been going on in my garden. Like I said, I am harvesting. I harvest daily. So it's not like I don't have anything, but I'm just not growing as much food and as good food as I normally am accustomed to based on our previous homesteads. So I guess patience is the key, but pivoting and turning what could be a negative into a positive is really what's going to, I believe firmly, is what's going to get me out of this whole situation. And I'm already looking forward to next year, because I know by the time next year, I'm going to have some awesome soil to grow in. Well, that's it from me and my family. So from all of us to all of you out there, happy gardening, happy homesteading, and until next time, stay safe out there.